Well, this was really interesting watching these people come down on these kites. I can tell you, I wouldn't be doing it. Now, I think because the sea is there and it was the angle, I was standing up quite high when I photographed this, I think I'm going to put the sea across here, and that will give us some blue and contrast there, and then our sand. So I'll pop that there. I've also altered the shadow a little bit on the drawing. The first thing I'm going to do is get some water into this because I want a very, very, very loose background. That should give us a little bit of time for getting all this on. Right, let us start with a French ultramarine blue. Always a good blue for a nice bright sea. Actually, I'm going to go into that with some turquoise as well. Because that will show up beautifully. And into that some French ultramarine. So. And just dip in a little bit. Just make sure that you're keeping it wetter all the time. I think some can come up here. That's quite a good colour mix actually. That's good. Then I'm going to get in a little bit of raw sienna, because their clothes are quite dark and that will show up nicely. And I'm not going to take it right to the edges. Just water that in. Obviously will dry quite a lot lighter. That gives us a feeling, doesn't it, of coming down, but it's very loose. Yeah, I like that. That's exactly the sort of background that I wanted for that. So I'm just going to let it dry naturally, let it do its own thing, and then we can get on. Now, as always with this sort of thing, the simpler we can keep it, the better. So the first thing I'm going to use is some cadmium red, and I'm going to get that lovely red stripe in, because I think that will just brighten it. And it's sort of, I'll do it the shape that I can actually see with dry brush marks. Maybe make it a little bit thicker than that. I want it to keep its redness when that, and then there's a bit that comes along the top there. And then that sort of carries on through there, and a bit underneath that. And that bit is a bit lighter where there's some plastic in front. Just add some more water, don't need to add anything else. That just gets it lighter, and we just soften that edge there. Right, now I'm going to go for some intense violet. And fairly thick again, because I'd like it to be quite strong, because they're quite strong colours. Right, and now we just dry brush marks, if we can. Wow. And then again, I'm going to just wash that out. That probably won't show when it's mounted with the lights on top of that, but just in case, I'll pop that in. Alright, now that is a little bit of a grey colour, but very watery. So I am going to put it in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a grey out of some cobalt blue and some light red. But the key to this working is that we don't overcomplicate it. So, clean brush, obviously, and cobalt blue. And a little bit of light red into that. That's giving me a lovely, lovely grey. And I want it quite watery. So it's just a hint. I'll just take that over everything else. So we can sort out the other things later. The key is to just simplify it all. Alright, well that's doing well. That actually comes up there and down to there. Now when I put our darker bits in, that should probably make some more sense of it. I'm going to go in with the dark now, and I'm using the cobalt blue again with some light red, but this time thicker. So exactly the same colour, but now a lot more pigment, a lot less water. And that can come down there. And there that comes along there. So this is probably going to get cut off with the mount. And then I'm going to leave that, because that I wanted to run a little bit, but I also want some of it to be quite dark and definite, so we'll leave that to dry. And we'll concentrate on the figures for the moment. Well, just thick grey for the white, because that seems to be in a lot of shadow. So cobalt blue, light red, nice and thick. So that's the white t-shirt. Nothing ever is really that white unless it's in complete sunshine. And oh, his socks too. He's got little socks on. Better make them the same length and I'm going to use light red and sepia for the skin tone, which again is in a lot of shadow, so quite thick paint. And just face there, his arm is very dark. And hers is just slightly lighter, so just a little bit more light red into that. There's not a lot of difference in it really. And she sort of tucks underneath his arm. And then the other arm that's sticking out, that's very dark too. So we've just done shapes really. Now this is really easy, and the quicker that you do it the better. I am going to go for a Prussian blue and a sepia. So nice and thick. I'm making it more on the blue side, and let's just paint them in very quickly. We've got this dark thing that's sort of, I'm sure it's important if you do this sort of thing and you know what it was. And the hat. That sort of comes out and catches it, doesn't it? Must be holding her up. There were a lot of screams, I must say. Don't know if you can hear them on the little clip that I'm going to put on, but there were screams. And I'm just going to do her trousers all in one colour, because I think otherwise it's just going to look a bit odd. And that's her leg. There's a tiny gap between his leg and hers. But what we can do is just leave a little white line. I think he's got shorts on. Yeah, he has. He has got shorts on. Brave man. I'll go back in with some dark for his legs in a minute. I think they're definitely moving. That dark colour for his legs. If that runs, that's good. That just adds to the movement. And his little dark shoes. I'll take that up there. Well, we're doing okay. Keep putting my arm into my paint, but hey ho. Any very darks that are thicker, sort of like under here, let's pop those in. That's the thicker ones, and then everything else seems to be quite tiny. Alright, I think get that main support thing in. That was the cobalt blue and the light red. And just run that right along there. And along here too. There's some red up there. Comes more from there, doesn't it? Okay, now the others are really quite fine lines, so I'm going to go with my card, but still use that cobalt blue and light red quite thickly. And I'm just going to load the card with the paint. And we've got that one that sort of comes down there and then over that one, but I'll have to get a smaller card in a minute. And then there's lots of little bits that are perhaps that will lose into that. It doesn't matter because there's a lot of movement. Then I'm going to add that and get this one in. And that's quite a big one, so we can pull it down slightly. And there we go. And this other big one. I'm going to go darker with that. So that's my Prussian blue and my sepia coming in now. And just above his head. have some lighter ones, but there are some darker shapes. It's a dark shape over the top of that. We'll just get that in and that can blend in. And the same underneath. And along there. I think that just all adds a little bit to the movement of what's going on. And then going back to my lighter colour, because I don't want these others to show up so much, but I'm mixing in a little bit of the blue. Run that along that edge. That starts from there and goes up to there. That goes through like that. And I've got a few marks here. Doesn't matter if we don't do every single one, but I'm sure it matters to them if they were in or not. And yeah, that ties up with that one, so that goes up there and to there, and that's the others are in. That's one here. Okay, I don't want to overdo it, but I do see that I need to do that one there. I just need the darker shape on that. Alright, let's just do that. I don't think I'm going to worry too much about that red there. I think if I fiddle too much, that could go wrong. So better not to. That isn't so dark as that, so a little bit of that pearl wash. Just take that out. That's that pole. Okay, now we've got a bit of a shadow underneath that. I'm just going to go for my mauve, and I've altered the shadow shapes slightly. Perhaps put a bit of extra vibrancy in there. Just a bit of thicker paint. One little thing, I've decided I am going to put in the red here because that is attached to it and it looks a bit strange. So it's a bit longer than it should be, but rather than, sometimes it's better not to take things out, it's better just to leave alone. And I think that must be a microphone. Okay, I've had a little bit of an accident when I've been drying, so what I'm going to do is make this accident work for me. So I'm just going to make a watery mix of red, and I'm just going to put some blobs of red sort of here and there, and I'm going to do the same with the blue, the Prussian blue, and maybe there. Nice and wet. And then once that's wet, I'm going to blow it with my hairdryer. Well, I'm going to dip my brush into this iridescent medium. You know, when things go wrong, just go for it. And that's covered now. And then we're going to, that should soften these bits that look like somebody's crashed. Oh, it looks a bit like wind, doesn't it? Okay, so that's nice and thick on there. Let's put the top on before I knock it over. Then I'm going to squidge that around with the hairdryer. And it's flat this time, so hopefully it will work. Well, we can't really have this looking like blood splatters, can we? So I'm flicking into this some cobalt blue, and that will sort of soften those edges. And I'm also going to put some turquoise in there because we've got turquoise in the sky. So I've just got that on the end of my brush. Well, when it goes wrong, it really goes wrong. And I was sort of happy with the initial picture, and then when this splash happened, I thought I'd try and correct it, and then it just looked like piles of blood. So I think I've left this to dry overnight, and I think these splodges have just helped, and it gives you that feeling of flying, and I think, yeah, that it's worked okay. There's usually something that can be done to rescue a picture. Probably not a good idea to do it when you're feeling so tired, but I thought I'd show you that things do go wrong. So thank you for watching.